Welcome to today's webcast. This is new features in Civil 3D AutoGrader. My name is Brian Lewandowski. I'm the Civil Product Manager here at CTC, and I'm going to be doing the presentation. Now, if you aren't aware, AutoGrader is something we released just a few months back. It's been received very well, and we've got a lot of new improvements coming as well. But just an overview, if you guys aren't familiar with what AutoGrader is, it's a dynamic grading tool set that works through linking feature line sets. You can define grading families, as we call them, and it'll auto-generate profiles for curb lines, ponds, residential lots, you name it. This is a shot of what it looks like in a grading family. This is a parallel type where it'll automatically generate parallel 3D offsets for you. It'll take all of that. You can at any time refresh a family if you change parameters in it, or if the baseline or the parent feature lines, as we call them, are changed, and then your whole grading plan will update. All the feature lines that are generated are automatically added to surfaces as well, and you have control over those triangulation parameters. AutoGrader will manage all your feature line styles and your layers as well, so you don't have to make any of those decisions after you set it up in your grading family. And you can even save out templates, different curb types, pond types, different lot gradings. Those often repeat from one project to the next. You will use them in different places, certainly, but some of those design parameters and standards will be repeated, and so you can save out definitions like this to be used in a different drawing or a different project. So some of the new features we've got going today, I'm going to just provide a summary here, and then we're going to jump into Civil 3D, and I'm going to highlight some of the main ones. We now have 3 different family types for different applications, different project types. Now, one we had already was what was called parallel, and that was one I was just referring to, where if you say define a gutter line and a curb, AutoGrader will automatically generate your back, your top of curb, your lip of curb. That's a 3D parallel offsetting. We're basically automating the stepped offset command for you. Kind of like what grading tools would do, but it's stable and it doesn't crash on you. And you can create all these grading objects or offset feature lines at once. That's a parallel variety where you, in blue here, you draw a parent feature line or sets of parent feature lines, and then AutoGrader will create all of these for you. The second type is a perpendicular grading family. And instead of from the parent feature line, and the example I'm going to use here is a residential scenario where we've used a corridor to grade to right-of-way. From there, I need to grade lots based on those grades at right-of-way. And with perpendicular types, we're grading feature lines that are perpendicular to the right-of-way or to the parent feature line. It's not just residential. A lot of scenarios could take advantage of this. And we can do 2 things. We can actually lay out those perpendicular lot lines, or if you have the lot lines drawn already, which is the case many times, it'll insert grade breaks in those existing lot lines. And in that case, the lines don't need to be parallel to that parent feature line. So the parent would be the red line, that example. And then what you spell out are grade breaks that will be inserted along those perpendicular lines. And then the new family type that we have, and this, the number 1 application with this, and this would be in subdivision projects where we need to insert a template, or in this case, a house pad. So some grading plans, some designs, some people do that. Other times it's just the lot lines we need to grade. If you need to insert house pads like this, AutoGrader will take care of all that for you as well now. It's, again, not just residential. It could be wind farms and pads along a service road, any kind of thing where you want to draw out a simple template, in this case, a rectangular house pad, and then AutoGrader will automatically insert that based on a relationship you define from a parent feature line. Now, the parent in this case is the red right-of-way line. The template is something I drew ahead of time, and then AutoGrader inserted it for me based on some kind of slope and elevation from right-of-way. So this is a shot of what that looks like. You choose a template object or objects, you choose base points, and then where should that be inserted relative to that parent feature line. And then you control station values to dictate where those lots will be inserted. I'll show you how that works in detail when we jump into Civil 3D. Another new feature, we have automated surface boundary creation. This is something we've been wanting to do for a while, and it turns out to be quite complex, but we think we've landed on something really cool here. Oftentimes when you're creating grading families with AutoGrader, or just any feature lines that you add in a surface on your own, you get triangulation across open gaps here, right? And you end up deleting that stuff from manually drawing boundaries. We now have a set of algorithms in here that will analyze your surface and trim just about all of the triangles for you automatically. And it'll create a closed polyline and then add that as a boundary to the surface. So that option is now available in AutoGrader. And I'll show you how that works in a little more detail in a bit. Another feature is a slope to end method in the lot grading or the perpendicular grading. Here's a scenario. I've got some lots of different depth, and I've got some defined grading from the right of way out, but at some point I just want to hold, say, a constant slope to the end of the lot. We have a slope to end method that will allow us to do this, where perhaps the back of the lots aren't fixed. It's not an existing elevation, but we want to still hold a constant slope for those backyards. So there's a new slope to end method. I'll give you a little example of how that works as well. And a couple other enhancements to note. Those of you who've been using this already, you're going to notice a lot of little improvements here and there. I just want to mention a few of them. The editing of family parameters in those family editors is going to be a lot more user-friendly. Your ability to tab and quickly change parameters. We've tweaked a lot of that stuff, so it automatically highlights fields so you can type in a new value. A myriad of speed and stability improvements. You know, what AutoGrader is doing is it's a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of 3D geometry being thrown around. And with all that going on, it's a lot of calculations in the DWG happening. We've made a lot of improvements in speed and stability as well. And we had a lot of requests for when you're in AutoGrader, give me the ability to create a new surface or a new style or a new layer right on the fly. We have those options in there as well, or a new site, for example. There's better station range controls when you're not grading along the full length of your parent feature lines. And how data transfers from templates from one DWG has been improved as well. So with that, I'm going to jump into Civil 3D, and I'm going to first touch on that automated surface boundary function. Now here I've got a very clear example where I've got feature lines that were used to grade out curb lines, and I get all this excess triangulation across there. Okay. Now maybe you're using a corridor in this example, or what I've seen from a number of folks is they're starting to use AutoGrader to grade out simple roads like this or intersections, because it can automatically grade all those curves for you. So what does this look like? Let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to open up AutoGrader. And what I have in here is one of these grading families defined. It's a parallel grading family. One of the little enhancements we made is you can double click a family and it'll open the editor right away for you. And in here I've got my top, my back, my lip of curve defined, and all of that's been created by running this family. Now what we've added in here is the ability to turn on the create boundary function. And when I run this family, it's going to update all of the child feature lines if there was any changes, but it's also going to create that outer boundary for me. So I'm going to click run, and then you'll see this created on the left here. I'll just take a few seconds to refresh, and then now you see that polyline outer boundary created. Now let's close out of this and take a look at what this does for us. Okay, so we've got a set of algorithms that's analyzing all the points in your surface and trimming out extraneous um, tin lines. Now it's not running the delete line command, it's simply creating a polyline and adding a boundary to your surface. Now what we've done to create this is generated a simple 2D polyline, and so that if it doesn't trim exactly how you like it, you know, we had to be very careful of how this creates a boundary. We don't want to eliminate geometry in your surface that you do want to be there, but sometimes there might be a little thing like this. What we've done is created what's called a non-destructive boundary, where we've unchecked that option when creating this boundary. And with a 2D polyline, you get this really handy add vertex operation. And if you simply run that, you can very quickly and easily trim out these excess triangles, okay? So we've taken care of what we think is about 99% of it for you. But we're not gonna nail it exactly, because what you decide are valid triangles or not may not be exactly what AutoGrader interprets. So like I said, we're doing 99% of the heavy lifting for you. You have a boundary, it's already created, and then you can run with it from there a little bit. Now, let me show you how this works. Say your design changes a bit. Let's go and grab those gutter lines. And I'm just going to extend these out a little bit. I'm going to make some geometry change here. Okay. Now my boundary is preventing any kind of triangulation outside of that, right? Now it might be a lot of different changes there, but let me show you how this works. If we go back into AutoGrader, I've already got defined create boundary. That's already checked. Okay, if I run this again, it's going to not only refresh all the child feature lines and create the top and the lip of curb and all that, it's going to redraw my boundary for me. I'm going to click run again. There it redraws those curb lines, and then it refreshes the boundary as well. Now you're going to get to a point where maybe you don't want the boundary to be refreshed or recreated. At any point, you just simply come in here and uncheck this. Your boundary will still be intact. It just won't update every time you run the family. So it's real flexible in that way. Let's take a look at that template grading. If I open up AutoGrader, in this drawing, what you see, I already have a few families created. I've got some walkout lot lines and some lookout lot lines, okay? And these are referencing different layer sets. They're grading those perpendicular lines landing on a lookouts layer, and then the other family is grading ones on a walkouts layer, okay? And so as you're building out your project, you can very easily do things like grab a few of these feature lines. If those aren't to be walkout lots, but instead lookout lots, you can simply grab them, put them on a different layer, and now these lots should get lookout grading, okay? Now that we've switched the layer on it, I simply come in here. If I run the lookout, that's going to now pick up these new feature lines. And if I'm going to click run, and you'll see these contours shift to now reflect what I've defined as a lookout lot. Okay, so I've got different distances and slopes to insert grade breaks along that lot line. Okay, so it's very dynamic. Okay, so we've shown you in the past, some of you might be using it already, how to do this perpendicular grading, the lot line grading. Now the template grading, especially in this residential scenario, fits in really nicely here. And the way it works is you first, much like a corridor with assemblies, you define what templates you have. Okay, now it doesn't have to be one feature line, it could be any number of feature lines. I've got a few different house pad types defined. A simple rectangle with some grade breaks in the middle. Okay, you can draw a feature line crossing here, doesn't have to be the grade break. Whatever the case, you know what your different designs will look like. And like assemblies and corridors, the grading family that we're about to create will continue to look back to these. So it's going to take these and insert these along our grading plan. But if I come back here and change what my standard walkout grading is, I can refresh my grading family, and then everything will update in my grading plan. So how does this work? Let's take a look. I've got my lot lines graded. I've got all those grade breaks in here. And these first sets of lots, these are to be walkout lots. And I want to put those house pads in there. Now, normally I would copy and paste that around and move them up and down and change all these elevations. But what I know is that for the elevation from right-of-way here, and there's a variety of ways to do this, I'm going to take elevation from right-of-way here at the middle of the lot and come up at a certain distance for a certain slope. So let's launch AutoGrader and let's create a new family. Here now you see that new option for template insertion. This is where, again, it'll take any set of feature lines you define and insert them along a path. It behaves much like a path array, the standard AutoCAD path array, but we're doing this with AutoGrader with feature lines. It's putting everything in your surface. It's doing a lot of that work for you. So we'll call these walkout pads. And I'm going to pick just this right-of-way line right here. Now, if I come into the stations window, here we can pick in the drawing. That's a new feature we added where you can snap anywhere in the drawing to pick what stations you want to insert this template at. But if you already have something like lot lines defined, you can use those to calculate those stations. And that's what the calculate function is here. If I click this, I can say calculate station values at line intersections or midpoints between lines. So depending on how you're grading this, how you think about it, you can choose different options. I'm going to choose midpoint between lines. And what this is, it's going to find intersections of those lot lines and the right-of-way lines and calculate the station at the midpoint automatically for me. So I hit calculate, and it does it along that right-of-way line. Now I hit OK, and some of you might be thinking, well, but we don't want that the whole length. I don't want that along the whole road. I've only got a portion here where my walkouts are. So I'm going to change my station range here. Over here is 0 station, and I'm going to come to just right here. So just up to, and you don't even need to specify the exact. It's just a limit so that it'll ignore any kind of intersections beyond that. Now, if I look back at my stations, I only have stations that fall within that range. Now I need to find a template, and I can create any number of grading children from any number of sets here. I'm going to keep it fairly simple here. We're going to define one template, and that'll be the house pad. I'm going to choose this object right over here, this walkout. This is a feature line where I have some great standard grading defined. Now, again, what those templates look like, define them however you want, okay? The core functionality of this is to take a set or a single set of feature lines and insert them based on parameters you define here along a set of one or more parent feature lines. So think about a lot of the different applications you might use this for. We're going to reference the midpoint of the lot here. Now, depending on the orientation you draw those in, you might need to specify a rotation. We're going to specify 180 to flip these around. I'm going to go a distance at a slope to the left of it. Okay, we're on the bottom right of way here. I'm going to go a distance of 40, and I'm going to go up at a 4%. Now, depending on the method you use here, there's different options that become available. Maybe there's a fixed elevation you want to be above right of way or above the side lot lines. A lot of different ways to think about it. Depends on what your approach is. Okay, so I've referenced that walkout feature line. I've chosen a base point and then other parameters that I control where this thing gets inserted. Now, if we come into the formatting window, here's where I get to choose what style is assigned, what layer is assigned. We're going to put this on all these new feature lines on the walkouts layer and on that site. Okay, and here we've added some of those no options where they make sense to create new layers right on the fly to create a new site. If you don't have this in here, you don't have to back out of AutoGrader and create that through native means, we can do it right within AutoGrader. So a lot of those kinds of enhancements across the application. So I'm going to save this, and then back on the main screen, if we want this to be added into the surface right away, we can go ahead and spell that out right here. If I take a look at the settings, if I want to control some of the supplementing factors, I can turn that on. We'll set that at 25. And I'm going to go ahead and run this, and what we should see, if I set up everything right, is these templates insert along these lots. It added them all into the surface. Close out of here. There's all that triangulation around there, okay? Now these are, again, dynamic. If there's a change to this template, if I change the slopes on it, if I change the size of the pad, okay, rerunning that grading family, everything will be reflected in all of these lots or these stations that I've referenced. So let's go back here. I simply run this again. And whatever change I made to that source, that template will be updated, okay? Now, it's going to vary from project to project. How many different designs do you have? You might have 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of house pads, but it's straightforward. You define that template. You can define any number of grading families. Simply spec out the stations where you want those inserted, and AutoGrader will take care of the rest. Now let's do one more so you can kind of get a feel for the workflow. Let's say along here we've got lookouts. And in fact, I even did that in my 2 grading families. The way these lot lines are graded are more for a lookout scenario versus a walkout. And it depends on how you're matching in back here. Let's go back into AutoGrader. And we've got this walkout pads. I'm going to make a new one, and this is going to be a template insertion again. This is going to be lookout pads. By the way, someone asked, can I download this webinar for future reference, right? If some of you are kind of following along, perhaps taking notes to understand how to do this on your own, yes, absolutely. We have this recorded. It'll be available on our YouTube page, and we'll even send you an email in the next 24 hours with that direct link. So just kind of tune in, watch what I'm showing you, and then you can refer back to it later on if you like. So these are lookout pads. Again, I'm going to grab that same right-of-way offset line. Now, I could be doing multiple sides of the road at once. Okay, there's no limit to how many parent feature lines you load here. I'm just kind of keeping it simple because we're introducing you guys to it, but there's really no limit to it. When you add more parent feature lines, you get more of them showing up here. Okay, you'll get additional columns to control stationing for each and every right-of-way there. So again, we come into our stations. We're going to do the between points, and then the station range. We want to change this. We want to go from here to here. And then again, you see that list of stations it's going to insert at. We'll see that change. This is the house pad again. We'll go and select the lookout pad. So here was my walkout. Now I've got a lookout, and this has different slopes applied, 5% and 20%. This was a lot steeper. So we'll pick this. My base point will be that front midpoint of the lot. I've got that one set up like the lookout, so we'll put a rotation on it. We'll again go to the left side, and we'll come a distance of 40 feet. Now, what does it mean to create more families here? That's to reference additional template objects, specify different base points, okay? So we can have it automatically be inserting any other lines in the back of the lot, perhaps some swale lines or you name it. Now there's a variety of ways where you can manually just draw your swale if that's to be the case in your grading option. But to create additional grading children within one family here is to reference additional templates and have them insert in different ways. So it's very flexible, it's very expandable in that way. I'm going to show you just inserting the single pad. So let's go to the formatting. Again, make sure we have our layering set correctly. These are lookouts. I'm going to save and close this. If I wanted to add to the surface right away, go ahead and do that. Confirm my supplementing factors. Hit OK. And I'll go ahead and run lookout pads option. Everything's inserted. Okay, so those parameters I'm spelling out in the grading family is 40 feet from here to here and add a 4%. Okay, now that's the way I'm thinking about it. Center of the lot, come up 4% at 40 feet. Obviously, it's going to vary for you. How you think about it will certainly vary, but it's very flexible in that way. What you choose as your base point, okay, it doesn't have to necessarily be the front midpoint of the lot. It could be anywhere on your house pad. It could be a distance away from your house pad. A lot of different ways. I could achieve the exact same result by having picked a base point down here and then specified a relative elevation and told it to be 2 feet above the road, and it would take care of the rest for me. Okay, so that's template grading in a nutshell. A lot of different scenarios. I'll be highlighting different ways to use this more in-depth workflows for how you use AutoGrader on different project types. But I just want to highlight and give you guys a taste of this new template grading option. It was the biggest new feature we had coming out, so real excited to get it into your hands. Let me touch on one other new feature we have, and that was the new grading method for perpendicular grading. Now, perpendicular grading, again, is where we're grading lot lines along a right-of-way or any other similar scenario where we want to insert grade breaks along feature lines based on a parent feature line. Now, what I've got down on the south side here is an existing feature line. This is the existing property line. And so these lots, these slopes are varying to match in back here. But what if I've got a scenario where I simply want to grade a certain distance, and then from the back of from the house pad to the back, I just want it to hold a 4% or a 10% or whatever it is, regardless of the depth of lot, okay? Because your lot depths may certainly vary, right? Like this. We might want to specify grades right up here where the house pad lands, and then again, hold a fixed slope all the way back here, okay? This is one of the methods that I want to highlight. There's other methods that are coming out in the next release as well. There's going to be targeting of feature lines or other objects. We're going to have interpolation between endpoints of the feature lines. I just want to give you a taste of one of them here. So I'm going to take these feature lines, and we want to create a new grading family for these lots. Okay, right now, these are following the method over here, these cyan walkout lots where the very back of the lot is controlled by an existing feature line. We're going to take these and we're going to put these on a different layer. I've got a walkouts inner lots here. Okay, so they'll change in color. Now let's open up AutoGrader. And they're mostly like this walkout lot lines, okay? But we want to do something a little different. So we can take advantage of our copy. And this one will be the walkout lot lines, but it's for inner lots. Now the front part around the house pad, the grading is the same, but here's where we have that new option. I'm going to grab a new grading family. What I want it to do after the house pad is simply hold a fixed slope to the end of the feature line, wherever the end of that feature line is. So this could be lot back. And here we have slope to end. And then I can hold, again, whatever kind of slope I want. I'm going to do a negative 4%. If I come into my formatting here, I can make sure I have the right layering set up. We'll set these on the walkouts inner layer. Now the other thing we have to do, we want to grade just these lot lines, right? Under the grade existing, it's telling me it's about to grade 71 feature lines. And the reason is, it's referencing the layer called underscore walkouts. That's what these cyan lines are on. We need to reference a different layer, that one that I put these green lines on, the walkouts inner layer. So when I hit OK to this, watch this number update here. It's going to go ahead and find just these green lot lines, switches to 16. Okay, so now it's going to apply this grading pattern to just those lot lines. So how you break up your site, it's very flexible. You create different families, and then you throw these lots based on layering in different families to meet your criteria. So I'll hit save here. We're going to have it going into that same surface with some of the same triangulation parameters. I'm going to go ahead and click walkout or run here. It's going to update all of those. You saw some of that geometry change. See if I got things set right here. Now if we pick on these feature lines, let's grab our quick elevation editor. Here's that negative 4%, and it's holding that regardless of that lot line, okay? So that's what that's doing. It's like a target to the end of the feature line. A lot of different ways to do it. We call it slope to end. And that's one of the other methods here. So, so you've got a combination, a whole variety of things now. We can do template grading, can grade out our house pads. We've got the perpendicular grading families to control the grading of all of our lot lines. All of this stuff is managed. It can be dumped into one surface. The boundary creation is taken care of for you. And then with one of our other new tools called Label Genie, we can dump labels across all of these lots and property lines as you need, all within just a few clicks. I highlighted that in some other webcasts. Go ahead and check those out. But the two of these tools work great together in all your grading scenarios. So thanks everyone for watching. I just want to mention a few other things here. If you're wondering how do you get your hands on this, AutoGrader is already part of the Sim project suite. These new features are going to be out in just a few weeks. I wanted to give you guys a preview of what's coming. We've got one of our biggest releases in the next few weeks with a lot of new stuff coming out. If you're a current license holder, you just want to get the new installer after the release, run that MSI or have your IT run it, however you manage it, and it'll just put all the new versions on your machines. If you don't own the project suite, contact your reseller, ATG in the US or SolidCAD in Canada. All right, thank you everyone. No more questions, so I'll go ahead and sign off right here. I wish you all a safe and happy day. Take care.